So hopefully this works. I don't know if you remember me telling you that I was probably going to get more frogs and not red-eyed tree frogs, but I did. I got the white tree frogs that I was talking about. I haven't given them names yet, but there's two of them in there. I made this tank for them, and then I'll make a different tank for them for school. But I wanted to read the story First Friend to you today. And it's about how dogs evolve from wolves to become our best friends. And it's showing a bunch of primitive drawings, probably cave drawings. No. Uh-oh. Long, long ago, when nomads who hunted through Europe and Asia fought lean, hungry wolves for their prey. On a wide, wide plain where whirlwinds blew and the grass was new, a girl met a pup. They jumped and chased, and they were both very brave. The wolf pup grew. The girl did too. But everyone knew wolves and girls could not be friends. Still, the wolf watched as the girl hunted and learned. The girl watched as the wolf hunted and learned. The sun went down, the world turned round, and years went by. And then, one day, long, long ago, when people's homes were huts or branches and hides, and wild wolves crept close to snatch bones. On a morning when winter was melting at last, and the river was tumbling spring flow fast, a wolf pup met a boy whose fingers tied knots, scritched itches, and sometimes shared treats. But the wolf pup grew, the boy did too. Everyone knew the wolf and the boy were not quite friends. But the boy watched as the wolf fished and laughed, and the wolf waited as the boy fished and hoped. The sun went down, the world turned round, and years went by. And then, one day long ago, when traders brought shells to barter for dried river fish, and Mama Wolf dug her den near, but not too near. Barter means to trade instead of using money. On a certain night in the blue twilight, a girl met a wolf pup who had feathers. The girl had dried deer meat and knew how to trade. The pup grew, the girl did too. Everyone knew they hunted together, almost like friends. The sun went down, the world turned round, and years went by. And then, one day, long ago, when the valley was changing and the people and wolves all knew they would soon have to find new homes far away. That looks very different, doesn't it? While the sun burned high and the grass grew dry, a wolf pup met a boy digging in a dry riverbed. They dug down until the hole filled up. The wolf pup grew, and the boy did too, and everyone knew they were best friends. The wolf watched the boy leaving and whined. The boy looked back and called, and Dog left the wolf pack to follow his boy away. The sun went down, the world turned round. Thousands and thousands of years went by, and then, just yesterday, a pup met a girl. And here is a whole lot of information that the author shared. I'll just read to you a little bit. How wolves became dogs. Humans and gray wolves lived in the same parts of the world for tens of thousands of years. They were not friends. In fact, they competed for the same prey. Then, sometime between 18,000 and 32,000 years ago, something surprising happened. Some gray wolves, perhaps in the Middle East or even East Asia, started to change. They became humans' hunting partners, then helpers, and, finally, best friends. They became dogs. A dog is genetically 99.96% gray wolf. But adult dogs and adult wolves look and behave very different. Before dogs and wolves are 8 weeks old, their behavior is very similar. Both are curious and friendly and interested in what humans are doing. They both bark and whine for their parents' attention. After 8 weeks, even wolf pups who have been raised by humans start to change. They are less interested in people than dog puppies and want to spend time with other wolves instead. Sorry, I lost my place. Adult wolves rarely bark or whine, but adult dogs do. In fact, adult dogs act very much like wolves who never grew up. How did this happen? And then it says, the Farm 4 experiment. A scientist named Dmitry K. Belyaev, I don't know that I'm pronouncing that right, who studied foxes, has given us some clues. Belyaev wanted to domesticate foxes. Domesticate means like make them to where they would be like a pet instead of a wild animal. Like wolves and dogs, very young foxes are not afraid of people. Belyaev bred foxes. Each generation he chose the fox kits, that's the babies, that were least afraid of humans to breed. Within 8 to 10 fox generations, the kits were less fox-like and more friendly. Their brains were changing. As the foxes' brains evolved, their bodies changed too. like newborn wolves. Fox kits have floppy ears that stand up when they get older, and wide heads that grow narrower, and short muzzles that get longer. But some of the friendly foxes' ears stay floppy. You hear him back there? I think that means it's a boy. Those are the ones that croak. Their heads stayed wide and their muzzles remained shorter. Bayleaf's new breed of friendly foxes looked and acted like foxes who never grew up. So there's a bunch of other information talking about the survival of the friendliest and fur babies. And then there's a note about this book. Scientists believe that dogs first started living with humans somewhere in Europe or Asia. The author and the illustrator imagined what the story of man's first friend would look like if it had taken place in Mongolia. They researched what life would have looked like during the time that wolves were evolving into dogs. No one knows what the people wore, what the clothing that the people wore looked like long ago, but we do know that the people of Asia were great innovators. At first, their clothing was probably made of animal skins and sewn together using bone needles. Later, we know they learned to make textiles. Remember, we talked about cotton, and dyed threads to bright colors. People hunted first with stone-tipped spears, and then later learned to fletch arrows with the feathers of birds so they would fly straight. So they learned over time. They failed and failed again, probably. And remember what we say about failure? Fail means first attempt in learning. The best kind of learning takes place after a failure has happened. So, this story is not a nonfiction story, but it's what they call a historical fiction story. They used history and things that they know, and then they imagined how it might have taken place. I thought this was a pretty cute book that I've been wanting to share with you. And so, with that, story time is over for today. I have to go to work. And I will see you guys later. Love you.